Family members of a 22-year-old Utah man shot and killed by police are demanding answers after new details have led police to modify the original story they used to explain his death. Last Wednesday morning in Saratoga Springs, Utah, Darian Hunt was shot and killed by police after a 911 call of a man walking around with a samurai-type sword. According to The Guardian, Tim Taylor, the chief deputy attorney for Utah County, said in a statement on Saturday when the officers made contact with Mr. Hunt, he brandished the sword and lunged towards the officers with the sword, at which time Mr. Hunt was shot. The two police officers were placed on paid administrative leave, and an investigation was undertaken by the Utah County Attorney's Office. But Darian Hunt's family has disputed the official account, particularly in light of certain key details. First, this picture taken by Jocelyn Hansen, who was reportedly at a gas station near a bank when she said she saw Hunt and the officers talking. As you can see from the photo, Hunt's hands are at his side. He even appears to be smiling. Jocelyn Hansen took this photo and she told ABC4 Utah, quote, "When I first saw police interviewing the young man, I felt like they were very professional. They were keeping their distance. Their voices were not raised." Hansen looked down to put her car in gear and says that this is when the scene turned deadly. "I looked up, there were shots and there was a chase." There has also been an autopsy conducted by Hunt's family. An attorney for the family, Randall Edwards, saying the fatal shot struck Hunt at the center of his back. 5 other gunshots struck him from behind, including shots to his legs, shoulder, elbow, and hand. Family says multiple witnesses saw Hunt racing from police when he was fired upon, and now, in light of that, authorities have modified their account. Chief Deputy Attorney Tim Taylor telling The Guardian that Hunt was in fact alleged to have lunged at officers outside a bank several dozen yards away from where he ultimately died. While it was outside the bank that Hunt was first shot at by police, Taylor said, it was not clear whether he was struck on that occasion. Hunt then headed north and was shot several more times before eventually collapsing outside the Panda Express, which is a restaurant. As for the so-called samurai sword, Hunt's family calls it a souvenir from a gift shop. Police officers have not yet been identified by the Saratoga Springs Police Department. Interviews with them pursuant to the investigation are just now finally taking place. One expected today, the other scheduled for Thursday. Joining me now, John Swain, reporter of The Guardian U.S. He has been covering this story in depth. So the story, if the story hasn't changed from police, it has at least been elaborated on. It was a very sort of terse statement at first. This is more, there's still a lot of questions we don't know.
That's right. The statement that was put out on Saturday seemed to be pretty clear, that there was this encounter, that Darian Hunt made this lunge and he was shot. However,
and they were presumably they were in close enough contact that the lunge was viewed as threatening and they responded with deadly force.
Precisely. They now expand on that to say he fled, and by the time he reached this restaurant some 75 yards away or so, he had been shot repeatedly. And as you say, his attorney says that all those shots were in the back. The question obviously is raised by this. Did he do anything between leaving that first encounter and the spot where he died to warrant being shot again? Did he threaten the police again? Did he make any more movements, allegedly, with this sword? Because otherwise, one might ask, he's made this first movement, he's fled, and yet he's continued to be shot by police.
I think when you just, at the most basic level, you hear police shot a man in the back, you think, okay, well, how did that happen? And it was interesting to me. This, of course, is not an official autopsy insofar as it's not the autopsy from Utah County. It's from someone hired by the family. Right. You might expect that they would push back and say, no, that's not true. But they didn't. They don't dispute that he was. I mean, notably in the new account the police give, they do not dispute that he was, in fact, shot from behind.
They don't dispute it. They don't confirm it either. They're saying that they need time. They're saying that the state-appointed medical examiner is carrying out an official autopsy. They're saying it's going to take some 6 to 7 weeks before that's going to be ready. County authorities are going to need to take that into account, they say, before they're ready to release any kind of official account decisively.
Wait a second. They're saying 6 to 7 weeks to conduct the autopsy?
The county prosecutors say that they expect to need 6 to 7 weeks until they receive this official autopsy, and then therefore they are ready to release their official account.
The question, of course, I think a lot of people are having when they read about the story is what's the deal with the sword? What was the sword? The family says this was a souvenir. It was sort of a dress-up sword of some sort. What do we know about?
So there's been some reports that this was some sort of toy. I think it's important to point out that's not quite right. It's not a toy. It might be seen as a decorative or, as you say, a souvenir type replica sword, but it does appear to have been made of metal. Prosecutors claim it did have a sharpened edge and even a sharpened point. The family dispute that. They say the edge was rounded. It couldn't have presented any real threat to anyone's person. Talking to his friends and family, they don't know why he was walking outside with this sword, why he would have been in public with it. They know he was kind of fond of playing with it. It was a younger brother's. It had been given to a younger brother for his birthday. But so far, no one's been able to give a full explanation as to why he was out there with it. And so, you know, that is going to need to be answered, I guess.
Jamel Bowie at Slate had noted that the outfit appeared to be close to a samurai character, and that Salt Lake City's annual Comic-Con was the weekend prior, and wondered whether, you know, but we don't have any information about that.
We don't. The family's attorneys have said they're open to this idea. They're looking into it. They don't know that Mr. Hunt was particularly into this sort of thing. They don't know for sure that that was what was happening, but they're definitely looking into that among other scenarios.
The question of race, of course, emerges here. This man was black. We don't know the race of the officers. We know the area is predominantly white in which he was operating. And his mother, Susan Hunt, anguished mother, you see there. She said, "They killed my son because he's black, no white boy with a little sword. Would they shoot while he's running away?"
This area is 93% white. It's 0.5% African American. Friends of Darian Hunt's I've spoken to said when he walked around this city, Saratoga Springs, obviously he stood out. He was a slim black guy with an afro. He was not like most people in Saratoga Springs, and therefore his mother's claim that this was about race, you know, might have some weight. The prosecutors have been quick to rule that out and say there's nothing racial about this. However, the two police officers you saw in that photo from the scene just shortly before the shooting are both white.
There's this awful scene that apparently ensues in which the family finds out that someone is shot, and when they hear the description, slim guy with an afro, they know immediately that it's their son. Essentially, the sister runs down to the scene to find this out.
This is right, and this is where the story begins to be perhaps even more reminiscent of other shootings we've heard recently. The family couldn't get access to the body. They weren't able to confirm that this was their son or brother that they believed it was. You know, the body was roped off. It was left in situ for several hours. The police were investigating it, but the family have reported some trouble in getting access to the body, access to officers who could tell them what happened. And in fact, some family members were taken to a police station and sort of questioned about why he was doing something wrong. Why was he threatening officers? And they felt that they were coming under question when their relative had been killed.
John Swain of The Guardian, thank you. Adrian Peterson may be back to playing football this week, even though he's facing felony charges for child abuse, but some of his sponsors are pulling their support. That's ahead.